I think marketing success comes in many forms, and it depends on the audience that is looking for success. It's quite clear that the commercial result at the end of it is one of the most important things. So being able to say to the senior people in the organisation, the board, Exco, or whatever it may be, that the result was what you wanted it to be and you've achieved those objectives. I think more often than not that does tend to come in the form of sales or retention or something like that. But what is also quite clear is that there are other measures that are important as well. The reputation of the organisation, the customer service of the organisation, and how marketing has influenced that. Now that's not always a linear relationship, so therefore commercial results are very important. And then secondary, well not secondary, but at least an equal importance will be some of the softer measures. But where you're going to get your credibility is if you get your commercial results off the back of it. Balancing the different sorts of media that we have, I think comes down to what's the cost-effective nature of it. So why would you bother paying for something if you can get it from owned and earned to some extent? So building the plan up from the very bottom and being able to do that is the kind of key piece around that. But also each of those types of media has its own different role and its own different part of the marketing mix. Getting it in front of people as much as you can and as many times as you can, if you've got a compelling message which you know they're going to like or appreciate or at least consume, I think that's how you get the right balance. The right balance is also around course correction. We always need to course correct. We don't always get things right. In the fast-moving environment that we're working in at the moment, where things are evolving quicker than we can cope with, then it's about actually trying things in a low-risk way and then investing in the things that really work so you can get that. I think the last year has seen the coming of age of social media as a way of being able to get commercial result out of the end of it. And to be able to take someone's interest on Facebook or social media platform and turn that potentially into something that they would become a customer, not just liking you, but actually engaging with you properly.
What does social media success look like? I think that really depends on your objectives from the start. So sometimes, if you're doing something that's more direct response, it's probably going to be click-throughs and it's probably going to be sales. If it's brand, then I think you've got a really interesting place in there, because where do you sit in that model of, is you getting brand awareness? Are you getting people to consider the brand? Are you getting people to buy the brand? So I think it comes down to sitting down with those objectives at the first part and understanding where you're going with them. You can measure so much with social media, and I think it's knowing which metrics you actually want to focus on and are important to you at that particular point in time, versus those ones which are really interesting. They probably tell you some quite interesting insights, but actually they're not really relevant to the success of the campaign that you're doing. I think social media sits across every single one of them. Now, when you look at perhaps other disciplines, so you might look at PR, deals very much with earned. You may have an element of paid or partnership that goes in there. You may have an element of owned, but they're primarily concerned on earned. Then maybe in the digital marketing mix, you've got something like PPC, which is just all about the paid. Social, I think, is really unusual as a discipline because it's matured over the years from probably being an earned media mostly and an owned media into paid, owned and earned. And the paid side of things is becoming more and more key. So from the paid side of things, Facebook now, if you want to get it in front of people, you probably need to factor in a decent amount of paid in your budget. Twitter as well. And actually what's really great about these media owners is that they put an awful lot of thought into the formats that are going onto there. But at the same point, I think earned and owned are really important. If you've got an owned from a social media perspective, you can have a great campaign. You can pay an awful lot. And then when somebody clicks on it, there's nothing else there. Where do they go? You've probably spent a lot of money and people aren't really going to actually find anything else interesting about it. From an earned perspective as well, if you take that great PR story and you get that reach and you get those great opportunities to see, let's say you're lucky enough to get coverage across the nationals, across the broadcasters. Again, if somebody's seen that, they might find it really interesting to go onto social, and social can really help amplify that. One of our most recent campaigns, the paid reached 6 million, the earned reached 7 million. And that was a great balance between paid, owned and earned. And there's some campaigns that do it really well. If you hit that sweet spot where you can get great stuff on owned channels, if you can really get that talkability throughout the internet and throughout the PR on the earned side of things, and you have a very clever optimization strategy from the paid side of things, I think you're always in a good place.
Well, to me, the big thing is actually it's the creation of a verb. We want to create culture around what it means to interact with objects in the world around you. We want the verb for that to be flip that. I think there's two things. One of them is to do with the amount of time that people are spending on social versus other platforms and touch points. The second one is the normalization of mobile. Those two things together mean that content really does have to be snackable and personalized. Otherwise, people simply won't engage in it. I think they're useful, but actually there's a problem that in the order that they're in that paid, owned, earned implies that you'd start with paid and end with earned. I would argue that we should start with owned and then move on to earned and then finally paid.